Who's going to catch balls for the Saints? Who's going to even play for the 49ers? Is there a juicy matchup for one Washington receiver? Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Football Free-For-All. This is the Week 3 Blue Tent edition, i.e. the injury report. We're going to cover the big injuries and what you should do to kind of plug those holes. So we've got George Kittle, and we've got Jimmy G, and we've got Raheem Mostert out. All three of those players are officially ruled out for this week. For George Kittle, if you didn't get Mike Gesicki in your lineup, which he didn't perform that great, but he did have a score, I'm going Jonnu Smith, Sample out of the Bengals, maybe Logan Thomas. I'm looking at those kind of that second and third tier tight end. You can find production there. So don't get discouraged and just like roll the dice with, somebody that you've never heard of. But those three tight ends are certainly serviceable. Jonnu Smith is my favorite this week because Mo Alley-Cox just absolutely decimated the Vikings last week. So see, if Jonnu Smith's in your league, one, he should be on at least on someone's bench. But if he's not, put him in, and he's a starter this week. Now, for Jimmy Garoppolo, I like Matt Stafford. I like Joe Burrow. I like, those guys are even Jared Goff. All three of those guys are plenty good fill-ins while we're waiting for Jimmy G to come back. Jimmy G hasn't been that like dynamic down the field passer like he was in his first, 7 games with the 49ers, but he's still doing okay. I would put him on injured reserve. If you don't have an injured reserve slot for him, he is okay to drop. Now, Raheem Mostert, he needs to be on your bench no matter what. He showed he's a dynamic playmaker. The only person that could replace him in this offense is Jerick McKinnon. And I think the other kind of lower tier, Jeffrey Wilson, some of those folks, they're not even Jerick McKinnon or Jeffrey Wilson are starters. They're deep flex at best. Now, what I did forget for George Kittle is Jordan Reed. Jordan Reed had a really awesome game last week. 2 scores, tons of targets. He should be able to duplicate that. If you need a high-risk, high-reward player, go check out Jordan Reed. Now, moving on. Let's go to the Browns. We don't really have any huge injuries for fantasy, but when you're looking at Washington, they're going to be playing against a decimated cornerback room. Greedy Williams, Denzel Ward, they're both out. See if you can exploit those injuries at cornerback and have Terry McLaurin in your lineup. Moving on, we've got the Eagles. Man, the injury bug here is just unreal. Jalen Reagor is out. Alshon Jeffrey is out. It gives a slight bump to Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz, and Miles Sanders, but it is a huge downgrade for Carson Wentz. So don't even waste your time considering them in your lineups or on your benches at this point. If you don't have an IR slot, they should be on the waiver wire. So just wait. I'm avoiding Carson Wentz this week. I just don't think that he is that good without his weapons. And the Bengals, they're going to play him tough. It could turn into a shootout, but these are both fairly inept teams. I think this could be a dud of a game. I just avoid. Now we've got the Raiders at the Patriots. We have some substantial injuries on New England. James White, his father was killed in a car accident. We wish him the best. He's out this week. N'Keal Harry and Julian Edelman are both injured, but they're both expected to play. Now on the other side of the ball, we've got Henry Ruggs. He's out. Darren Waller and Josh Jacobs are both questionable with injuries respective. Darren Waller has a knee injury. Josh Jacobs has a hip injury. Neither of those two players we are anticipating to be out. You can roll them in your lineup, and you should. Now, on the Bears at Falcons, we've got one big injury. Julio Jones. He has a hamstring injury, and he's trending towards doubtful. He's questionable, as Julio Jones generally is. But everything that's being said and all of the reports out of Atlanta are that he is in worse shape than we think. I would have Russell Gage lined up, Calvin Ridley lined up. I would be looking elsewhere and planning for that alternative. All right, now at the Rams at Bills, this might be the highest scoring game of the weekend. Cam Akers is out. That rib cartilage injury is going to plague him for quite a few weeks. I think if he's on your bench and not in an IR slot, his time is limited. That running back room with Malcolm Brown and Henderson is just too crowded for Akers to be taking up that valuable spot. Now, you don't have to drop him for nothing, but if there's somebody that you can use, do it. On the other side, Dawson Knox is likely going to be out this week with a concussion. Zach Moss is out with a toe injury. And those are big injuries for this team. Dawson Knox may not be a stat line guy, but he has a huge impact on the game. Zach Moss, obviously, with him out, Devin Singletary should feast. This game is going to be very high scoring. And as such, look for Devin Singletary to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield and have serious production. I'm really high on Stephon Diggs, John Brown, Cole Beasley this week, especially with Zach Moss not being able to do that kind of in between the tackles running. Over at the Texans, the only two injuries of any note are Duke Johnson, who's questionable, and Kenny Stills, who's questionable. You're not doing anything with this. I mean, Will Fuller, he's been cleared off the injury report. I'm not buying it. I'm not rolling him out any leagues. He has to earn my trust to be started in any leagues. He's going to have a couple of boon games, and it's going to suck for owners that don't start him. But at the same time, you can't risk this bust potential. The Titans at Vikings, we've got the big one, is A.J. Brown. He's out. That bone bruise is nasty. Look elsewhere. Jonnu Smith should see a continued rise in targets. Adams Humphrey and Corey Davis, I don't love them. They're deep flexes for me, but Jonnu Smith is a tight end one. Christian McCaffrey and Tyrod Taylor are both out. This actually helps the pass catchers of the Chargers. It's sad to say, but Herbert is just a better throwing quarterback than Tyrod Taylor. It bumps Mike Williams and Keenan Allen a little, and Hunter Henry a little bit higher. And so those players are folks I'm targeting this week. Now, the Jets at the Colts might be the least exciting game that has ever happened, with Phillip Rivers' arm being a ghost of itself, and the Jets wide receiver core not being non-existent, and running backs for that matter. Jack Doyle's out. Jamison Crowder and Brashad Perryman are both out. You're not doing anything with this game. I mean, you're starting Jonathan Taylor. You may be starting T.Y. Hilton, but the rest of it's garbage, so stay away. The Cowboys at Seahawks, there are no injuries of note, and holy crap, be prepared for a fantasy productive Sunday. Finally, well, I guess not finally, but towards the end, we've got Kenny Golladay. He should be set to play with that hamstring injury. Everything is pointing to him being good to go, so be excited about that. The Cardinals defense has played some bad teams, and so I think that there is some really good fantasy production on the horizon. On the other side, Christian Kirk is out. No one was relying on him. It's another disappointing year. We all hoped that Christian Kirk would have that breakout, but it's the DeAndre Hopkins show. Kenyon Drake is a must start as well. It's just really disappointing. Buccaneers at Broncos. Cortland Sutton, Drew Lock, Phillip Lindsay, all out. I mean, that's the core of that team. Jerry Jeudy is questionable. Hamler's going to play, but they're going to rely on this defense that's stretched thin already. On the other side of the ball, everybody's healthy. And so you're going to have Mike Evans, Godwin, Gronk's a non-factor, but Howard and Leonard Fournette just crushing up this team. Moving on, Packers at Saints. Man, this is going to be a depressing game. I think the Packers are much better shape than the Saints are, but Davante Adams is doubtful. That bumps up MVS and Alan Lazard's value substantially. But, it's are you really that excited? Have they especially with Lazard, has he proved he can do anything? I'm not running Lazard. MVS is interesting, but I would have avoided the other one. Now, on the other side of the ball, Mike Thomas is out. We saw how inept this Saints team looks without Mike Thomas. Drew Brees looks like a shadow of his former self. Traquan Smith had an okay game. Jared Cook had an okay game. Emmanuel Sanders was a ghost. I think they'll get back on pace, but the issue is that these teams are just decimated by injuries. So we can't really predict who's going to be the hot hand. I'm going to go Alvin Kamara heavy this game, and Traquan Smith is probably the receiver you're using in a pinch. Emmanuel Sanders is getting paid way too much to sit on the bench, but it just doesn't look like he has any rapport with Drew Brees. So the Monday night game. This is a game we don't have any really pending or pressing injuries, but I'm really worried about any Chiefs pass catcher. So if you're wondering, is there anyone you should start? Be on the lookout for the next episode of Fantasy Football Free For All, where we break down the juiciest fantasy matchups this week. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe, like, comment, and share.